Getting there. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Homebrew Weekly episode. Cheers, 17. Not bad. This beer doesn't have as much of a head on it for some reason, but anyway, it is a little bit undercarbed, and I was gonna fix it and I kept forgetting, and now it's too late. Once you get halfway down the keg or something like that, it's kind of, you just have to live with it. So if you're gonna fix your carbonation in your keg, do it at the beginning. Don't wait till halfway through, because it really does waste a lot of gas. There's so much space in there, you know. Anyway, today I'm going to sort of try to wrap up. I know I'm in the same place. I usually like to shoot my videos in different locations, but today we're kind of talking about a few things that I got over here, so maybe next week we'll do a walk or something like that. Gonna sort of try to wrap up, or at least resolve, the yeast discussion that we've been having. And in case you don't recall, I've been recycling this yeast. This is a package of Safale USO5 yeast that was about 6 months over its best before date, which I don't think really matters as long as it's kept refrigerated. And this is now 9th generation yeast. I plan on using it. I just scooped it out of the fermenter the other day, and I've got it, had it in the fridge, and I'm planning on using it in my next batch, which I'll talk about in just a moment. I forgot to get something I need to have, but I'll go get it in a minute. I had a conversation with Coron Zenith, and some of you may just know him as CZ. So from now on, we'll call him CZ. And he's a brewer friend of mine from Australia. Him and I had a discussion on Skype, and he told me something really interesting. Now, I'm going to try and simplify it a little bit, because I think what I'm going to try to do is get Coron Zenith, or CZ, on Skype again and record his version of this explanation that he got straight from a fellow who owns his own microbrewery and has a 4-year university degree in yeast. Yes, sir. There you have it. He spent 4 years studying yeast. So I think it's fairly safe to say that this fellow might know what he's talking about, you think? Maybe? So it would be great if I could speak to the guy directly, but I don't know if we can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to CZ and see if we can get him on, and we'll let him go through the whole thing. But the bottom line with it is, and what we talked about, and what he found out from this microbrewery owner who has 4 years of university in yeast, you take a package of yeast, dry yeast, whatever yeast, and in this case, like I said, I'm using the USO5 variety because I like it. It's clean and it's a great yeast. You can basically, if you recycle that, you can use that yeast. Now get ready for this, because there's going to be some alarms going off. You can use this yeast for the rest of your life. Yes, there's all, hear all those alarms going off. Anyway, no, this is no word of a lie. The way it was explained to me was that yeast doesn't really, like, it's not like it mutates and gets worse and worse and worse and worse every time you use it. It's just adapting. It adapts to whatever environment it's in. So, you know, if you have a beer that's fermenting at a little lower temperature than last time, then that yeast that's going into there will adapt, or somewhat adapt. And again, you know, him and I talked about this, and I didn't write anything down or anything. This is why I think I'm just going to get him to Skype in, and we'll record his call, and we'll get him to explain all this. But the yeast adapts, and it basically becomes a slightly varied strain of the original yeast that you used. So now this yeast, 9 generations later, originated from a package of USO5 yeast, but this is now a Craig Fairway USO5 yeast. Slightly different strain than the original strain. Doesn't mean that it's worse, doesn't mean that it's better, although I'm thinking to myself, if you did do things to the beer that could hurt the yeast or taint it in some way, maybe an infection or something, or you made a sour beer and, that yeast was, involved with that, then maybe you wouldn't be able to, bring it back and still use it as a normal ale yeast or whatever. And by the same token, if you treat this yeast beautifully and give it a nice home and a nice place to eat and nice food, then it will keep on going and going and going and going, as long as you want it to. Now, I know and I'm not going to call it brew lore, but there is a lot of that out there. Now, and I haven't read all the brewing books out there, and some of you have read different books and read different things. Listen, I'm going to keep using it. I'll keep using it until this jar is an antique. So I will tell you from my own experience how many times I get to use this, but we're not going to talk about it every single week. It's number 10 now, it's number 11, So you can keep using these yeasts as long as you want to. And that is according to this fellow, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, that owns his own microbrewery and has a 4-year university degree or whatever on just yeast. So I think that's pretty reliable. So, we can kind of close that chapter, but I'll keep coming back every once in a while to let you know, how things are going and any things I may have run into. The other thing is that washing the yeast is, oh, here I go. I'm going to be walking on unsteady territory during this video because everything I say in this video is my opinion, except for that what I just told you, because that's not my opinion. That came from a guy who seems to know what he's talking about. But this, what I'm about to say, is my opinion, and a lot of brewers agree. You don't have to wash the yeast. If you want to strip everything out of the trub, whatever you call it, from the bottom of your fermenter and just end up with plain yeast, then fine. You can wash your yeast, and there's videos out there on how to do it. If you're going and brewing for a competition and you're going to use a yeast from your last batch, it's the same yeast you're going to use on this batch, and you really don't want anything weird to happen or any weird flavors or something, hops or things to go into the next beer. You want it's got to be perfect, it's got to be within style guidelines and all that stuff. Fine, wash your yeast if you know how to do it. Everyone, it's not hard. But this yeast, this has done, and it's a little darker in color than it was when, I started. This has gone through, the first beer that this brewed was a Cooper's IPA with nothing added, just plain and simple, right? Somewhere along the line, I brewed a very dark beer with this yeast. And I think I mentioned I was going to cheat and brew a dark beer with the yeast and then brew a lighter beer with it again to see what happens, because the rule of thumb out there is that once you brew, don't go from light to dark. If you're going to reuse the yeast, go from dark to light, right? I don't seem to think that this little jar of yeast, I might only even use half of it, is going to transfer a lot of things from the last brew over to the next one. I don't want to take the lid, I don't want to take the lid off it because I don't know if I'm going to use it today. But when I smelt it, it just smelled like yeast. It didn't have any, and it's been through 2 hoppy beers, 1 very hoppy beer. And now, 9 times later, or was it 8 times later, back to the Cooper's IPA. And again, a little less carbonation than it's supposed to have, but to my tongue, this Cooper's IPA tastes absolutely no different than the Cooper's IPA that I made, that I used this yeast with the very first time I used it. And I did this the same way and brewed it the same way. This basic, just 20 minutes, boom, you're done. So, and it's been through dark beers, and it's been through hoppy beers. And now we're back to this. I am going to brew a Pilsner. Now, it's hissing because it's warming up because I took it out of the fridge. I have a Pilsner that I'm going to brew with this yeast. And it's not really going to be a true Pilsner, I guess, because this isn't really a Pilsner yeast. We don't even know what it is anymore, do we? Because it's been through all these brews. But the color of the beer, and all that is going to change. Now, I went to my homebrew supply shop today, and for all of you guys and gals who live around here, I'm not going to say where I live, but you know who you are. Complete home brewing, okay? And I guess it wouldn't be hard to figure out, if you really need to know where I am. But they sell the Cooper stuff, and so if you do go there to get your stuff, so 5 or 6 of you that watch these videos, he brought out a box of Black Rock Pilsner instead of Coopers. He said, did you want to try these? One of these. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just going to brew, a couple of Coopers. And I thought, I would love to, because I always noticed that when you brew the Cooper's product, and, I don't get paid or anything by Cooper, so don't think that. I wish I did, but anyway. When you brew the Cooper's product, it's a good product. For what it is, it's top notch, okay? I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's what it is. I always noticed that when I bought the Black Rock brand, I never really thought it quite measured up to the Coopers, but I'm thinking, wait a minute, maybe it's the yeast that they send with it. Complete Home Brewing have a lot of these cans and nobody's buying them. And so I'm going to try to help them out and say that I'll try this Black Rock kit. And if you live around the area where you can get to that store, pick up one of those cans of Black Rock and, try it yourself if you're going to recycle or use a different yeast. It doesn't have to be recycled yeast. Just get some good yeast. Order it from somewhere, or whatever, and use it and see what happens. There it is right there. What did I buy? Black Rock Pilsner Blonde. Okay, let's have a look. How does this come off? What the heck? I don't know if there's a trick to this or not, but I haven't got time. I'm trying to make a video here. There we go. There's probably a proper way to do that, but let's see. No, it's just premium brewing yeast. 7 grams. 5 grams? Okay, so what do I say? I'm actually surprised at this. So I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use this, and we'll see, because this can actually contains a little bit more extract than the Cooper's does. Whether that makes any difference or not, or maybe they just didn't condense it down as much or something. I'm not sure, but I'm going to give it a whirl anyway. Okay, so that's that. We're going to do that. We're going to try that. We're going to use this yeast. It should be a blonde beer. Technically, it shouldn't be a Pilsner because it's not necessarily going to be brewed like that. But color-wise, it should be fairly light colored. And, been through dark beers. We'll see if it matters. Okay? So I know there's purists, and I hate to label people, but, out there who really want to just, they need perfection. They're brewing for competitions and whatnot. And so, they just need to know that every single component of their beer is fresh, undamaged, unaffected by something. And so they go the safe route and they get a nice new package or thing of yeast. But for my purposes, brewing from the seat of my pants, as I often do, we're going to see what happens with that, okay? So I think that's all we're going to talk about with yeast for now, until we can get CZ on and we'll get him to explain what he heard this guy say, and then we can sort of have a discussion after that. If there's anything you guys want to put in the comments down below regarding this, please do. I'm not always right. I'm doing this as best I can. I learn from you, as well as you learning from me. So, you know, interaction is perfect. It's key. All right. Cheers. As a matter of fact, this is lacking in the hop department, even though the yeast that I brewed it with was used to brew a very, very hoppy beer. and I only washed the yeast once, and that was after like the second generation. And I never washed it again after that. I don't think that washing yeast is as necessary as people might think, okay? Get it off the bottom of your fermenter. You know, scoop it around, sanitize everything, sanitize your spoon, whatever you're going to use. Don't scratch your fermenter. Get it out, get it into a jar, put it in the fridge, and just brew with it. Brew with it. Now, if you've got hop particles at the bottom and little things around there, well, you might have to use a different, you might have to do something else. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, I guess I can just leave everything. Sorry about the mess. I'm actually in the middle of shooting a Craig's Dungeon video. So, hint, hint. I think I said that last week too, but this is actually happening right now. If you can see the tripod there and stuff. The other day I had a can of just plain liquid malt extract. No hops, no nothing. And I thought, geez, I need to brew a beer. I gotta get a beer on it. Took the can of liquid malt extract, dry malt extract, a little bit of dextrose, and I had some hops. The hops that I used, I got the little bag here, I kept it so I could remember. Oh, I think it's, okay, here it is. I love the smell of that. This is Nilsson, forgot my glasses again. Nilsson Salvin. Show that on the cam. If it'll, there we go. I think so. These are from New Zealand, and this was sent in to me a while back, and I have, there was 100 grams here, which is basically 3 ounces approximately. So I just split it in 3. I put one at the beginning of the boil, one in 20 minutes left in the boil, and then one at the end of flame out. So I added some grains. I put in some caramel 10, crystal 10. Put in about a kilogram of that, which is about what? Well, you guys can do the math. A kilogram, whatever that is. And I put about 180 grams of Crystal 60. So a kilogram of Crystal 10, 180 grams of Crystal 60. And I did the 180 because that's a tribute to vinyl, to my vinyl channel and my vinyl hobby. Helen Reddy, great singer. Anyway, 180 grams. If you're into vinyl, you know what 180 grams means. And if you're not, well, don't worry about it. But I had approximately 370 grams of the Crystal 60, so I split it in half and did 180. So I got another half in there I can use in a subsequent batch. Did the boil, put all my hops in. It's a beer. You got your hops, you got your grains. The caramel 10 is supposed to help with head retention and body, the mouthfeel. It's not going to add a lot of flavor necessarily, but it's going to add a lot of good things to the beer to make it feel and look better. And the Crystal 60 will add a slight bit of caramelly or sweet taste. Not too much because I didn't put a lot in. Although 180 grams is, it's quite a bit, but it's not near the limit of what you can use. And did the boil right on my induction stove here. Whoops, I'm pressing buttons. No, oh no. And did a little steep the grains for half an hour at 160, and did the whole thing. The final thing I want to just reiterate with you, I took a pot of, you may have seen this last week, this is my new induction burner. I keep this parchment paper on it because I really don't want to scratch it, and plus I cooked some pork chops on it the other night, and I didn't want doing this with the pan. I don't want it to be scratching this. So cooked the pork chops really good too. Nice pork chops with cream of mushroom soup and onion and garlic, right? So anyway, I took a pot. I don't think it was that pot. I think it was my bigger one. I put 5 to 6 liters of water in it. That's about what I would use for a mini mash. And you'll see all this when I do that series, okay? Got it up to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, I'm using Fahrenheit. I like Fahrenheit for temperature when I'm brewing beer. 149 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was able to hold it at that temperature, almost at that temperature, for 3 hours. So in 3 hours, it went from 149 to 151. Just sitting here, just like this, set this to 160, and it just stayed at perfect mash temperatures for 3 hours. So if it only went up 2 degrees for 3 hours, then if I'm doing a 1 hour mini mash, Bob is your uncle. Okay, Bob is your uncle. Fantastic. I wish this particular model, I'm sure other models will do it. They have basically all have the same electronics and basic principles to them. So if you have one of these, this one only plugs into 120 volts, 15 amp service, or 15 amp wall outlet. I just have to make sure nothing else is running at the same time or pop a breaker. But that is so good for me, because now I can do mini mashes all the time. You come over here, put your water in, you get it up to temperature, throw in your grains with your little, bag thingy, your little mesh. I've got my paint strainer bag here. It's been used a lot, so that's why it's discolored. And you do a mini mash, and you walk away. This thing takes care of it for you. Walk away, go shopping, go make dinner. You don't have to be back in an hour. You can come back anytime. And or you can set this thing to shut off after an hour, and then it'll just sit there. You come back later that day and brew your beer. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. I'm very excited about that. So that beer is fermenting over here. The one thing I did notice, and I have been noticing with reusing the yeast, is that the krausen that forms along the outside of the fermenter here has reduced. The first few times I used that yeast, it was like, whoa, really, way up there. And now it's just a thin little line. It fermented like crazy. It slowed down now, but it went like nuts for days. But it's just not forming as much of a krausen, and I'm not sure why. And CZ actually found the same with his, because he's doing the same experiment. So there must be something going on where the yeast doesn't create that krausen as much after it's been adapted or used in your brewing scenarios. I don't know why. Maybe somebody can post a comment down below. And by the way, check out this awesome looking t-shirt. Yes, that bloke's name is Jonathan. And he sent me a selfie with him wearing one of my shirts. So I really appreciate that. If you want to send me a selfie of yourself wearing one of my shirts, if you did buy one, please send it to craigtubemail@gmail.com. I do not usually answer questions on that email account. So, but if you want to send me a selfie of yourself wearing your shirt, by all means, send it along and we'll put it on here for you. And I want to thank Jan Erik from Norway for sending an extremely kind donation. Thank you very much. His name in the chat room and my broadcast is Drunken Metalworker, I believe. So hopefully maybe we'll see him this week in there from Norway. So speaking of Norway, I do have other beers. I got a beer from Norway. I have 2 beers to review actually. And I also got a package the other day from the UK. And we've got some Applejack here, some special Applejack, and some slow gin to review. So we'll be doing those probably next week on Homebrew Weekly. I got the note and everything here. Didn't have enough time this week to get these in, but definitely be doing them for next week, trying these out. So awesome. Can't wait to see what those taste like. In the meantime, I'm out. Thanks guys for showing up and watching, and we'll see you next week. We'll see you on the live broadcast. We'll see you on another video. Got Greg's Dungeon videos coming up. I got lots of things to do. Got this mini mash series coming up, and it's all good. I'm feeling good. Cheers. 17.